So basically what I wanted to share, and tell me please if I'm sharing stuff that's not, that's kind of too boring or something, okay? Or repetitive. I found Kay Arthur's stuff. So I had been listening to like a CDs by Kay Arthur, and then I checked out a book from the church, and it turns out to be on Bible study and the inductive method of Bible study. So I thought that was really great. And then in the appendices, she has like an overview of the Greek verbs, because she feels that verbs are the most significant elements in expression of thought and key to understanding what the author is trying to communicate. Therefore, the understanding of the verbs is a key to correct interpretation and application of scripture. So that I just sort of thought I would do a review of verbs, tense, voice, and mood, and then look up some of the examples. And since I was confused about the aorist tense the last time, I was trying to learn about that. And so I was hoping to just kind of share it with you guys and see if you guys kind of understand it, because it took me about a day or so, or at least to, just try to start wrapping my mind around, what that tense actually means. And then there are some example verses. So that was my, and then if I got to it, I'll show you what I've been doing with Jenny's, her exercises, a verse a day. I'm probably not doing it quite the way that she thought about it, but anyway, this is stuff that's kind of confused me for a long time. So I was very happy to find this overview. So like I said, if I get too boring or something, or just talking about stuff that you know, then just stop me, and then we'll talk about the aorist, okay? Just by itself. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, okay.
Thanks. So Kay Arthur started this ministry called Precept Ministries. Okay, so this was the first page there. It says, part of the beauty of the Greek language is that the construction of its verbs clearly shows who does the action, whether the statement is command or suggestion, and whether the passage is speaking of reality or possibility. And in doing this course, the major features of the Greek verbs are tense, voice, and mood. So first I have an outline, a little one. So do we remember what the tenses are in Greek? So first of all, actually, I should remind that, okay, it says that Greek verb tenses differ from English verb tenses in that the kind of action portrayed is the most significant element, and time is a relatively minor consideration. Okay? So there's three kinds of action. There's action as continuous, action as completed, and action as occurring. Okay. So, like I said, tell me if I'm just going through stuff that you all know. The continuous action is usually in two different tenses, which are the present and the imperfect. Okay, and there are charts about this whole thing. I should probably, I probably should bring up the charts that might be more helpful, do you think? But anyway, so the present tense is continuous action, right? Which is primarily progressive or linear and shows that the action is continuing. For example, Jeff is studying the Bible, and as the branch cannot bear fruit in itself unless it abides in the vine, So neither can you unless you abide in me. So that's one I want to look up. But I'll get to that later on. Is it kind of clear? You think it? And then there's the imperfect tense, which is continuous action, usually in the past. Example would be Jeff was studying the Bible. So those are the two tenses that are the continuous action, the present tense and the imperfect tense. Then you have the action as completed, which would be the perfect tense, and the pluperfect. So both of those are tenses I think that if you studied French that you would kind of be familiar with. So perfect tense would be a action that happens at a specific point in time. For example, and they call that punctiliar action in the past. For an example, Jeff is being transformed by having studied the Bible. And then another example would be, you are already, from John 15:3, you are already clean because of the word which I have spoken to you. Okay? Then you have the pluperfect, which is an action that happens at a specific point in time, or punctiliar action in the past with the results continuing in the past. So with the, okay, so that's, wait, let's see. So that an example of that would be Jeff was transformed because he had studied the Bible. So it's punctiliar action in the past with the results continuing in the past. That's the pluperfect. And the perfect is the punctiliar action in the past with the results continuing into the present. Okay? Right, so is that pretty clear? Is there any questions so far?
Yeah, it's clear. I just observed that in action as completed, we have two verbs. One for perfect tense, one is continuing or present, and the other was in the past tense. And in pluperfect tense, both verbs were in the past tense.
Okay, so it's a punctiliar action in the past with the results continuing in the past. So an example would be Jeff was transformed, he was in the past, right? Because he had studied the Bible in the past, right? That makes sense, right? Is that?
Yes, that makes sense. It's continuing in the past or pluperfect tense. Whereas the other is continuing at present because of the past.
Yes, yeah. So for example, John 15:3, you are already clean because of the word which I have spoken to you.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I had a different understanding of perfect tense. Here it's punctiliar action in the past with the results continuing into the present. But I understood it more as a completed action. Like I have eaten, like that means I finished already. Like it's as like in a sense of the thing that I'm doing. There's
It's continuous. Well, let's keep going, and maybe there'll come another tense or something that'll be more that'll help you understand it better, or help us understand it better. Okay.
Okay.
So then the next thing is the aorist, which was the interesting thing, which I'm a bit confused about, to be quite honest. Anyway, so this is how it describes it. The aorist tense states that an action occurs without regard to its duration. That is, it denotes the fact of an action without any reference to the length of that action. So the aorist tense is like a snapshot that shows or expresses that an action occurs, while the present tense action is like a moving picture continuing on. So is that maybe what you're talking about? That says aorist example would be Jeff studied the Bible, or and then from John 15:4, abide in me and I in you. I think we should look that one up.
It's more like, I think in English, maybe that's why I'm confused, because for English, I think a perfect tense is a completed action. So it would be like Jeff has studied the Bible, meaning he's done studying the Bible.
Right.
And yeah.
It's done studying rather than having it
Rather than I'm saying that, oh, he studied the Bible and that is affecting the present.
Right.
Yeah.
Got that. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's what I was just going to say. Okay.
So maybe
cool.
I don't know, maybe they don't mention it, or maybe that's not their concept. Like even though we use the same words, perfect tense.
Yeah, we can look up some example verses for sure.
Yeah, but I also want to note the aorist in the examples. One is past. The other one is actually, it's like adjective, right? Abide in me. It's a command, or it's a imperative.
I think it's actually, if you looked at the verb, the verse, it's probably an aorist imperative. But that actually was going to talk about that later on, because that was the verse that she used as an example verse to look up, later on, 1 Timothy, like guard the good deposit. So
yeah, we can look at more examples, or you can continue.
So that last one, just going over it in the tenses, is the future tense. So, and then she said this is the only tense that reflects the time of the action. So it's indefinite action to occur in the future, indicates continuing or punctiliar action in the future. And it says, for example, Jeff will be studying his Bible. It shall be done for you. John 15:7, or so prove to be my disciples. So the next thing is voice. That shows. So this is kind of stupid, but I just thought I would ask anyways. But what they were saying is that the Greek verb tenses are different from the English in that the kind of action portrayed is the most significant and the time is a minor consideration. So it just seems like time is part of all those tenses also. Well, maybe not so much. It's the kind, whether it's continuous or completed, or whether it's still occurring, right? Or whether it's occurring, right? Rather than the time that's more important. Am I right?
I need to think about that. This is the only tense that reflects the time of the action. And the rest, so it means that all the rest don't reflect the time of the action.
Right. That's what it seems to me.
But a little bit confused.
Yeah. So, but let's not think about it too much. I suppose maybe it sort of grows on me, which is sort of what it did after a day or two. Let's just review the rest and then get into the aorist and look up some examples. So the voice should be probably pretty familiar, right? It shows how, well, some of it is I'm a bit confused about the middle voice, but so it shows how the subject is related to the action. So you have active voice, which indicates that the subject produces the action, like in Jeff hit the ball, or and every branch that bears fruit, he prunes it, from John 15:2b. And then passive voice indicates that the subject is acted on, which is Jeff was hit by the ball. And the other one I have to look up. And they are burned. And from John 15:6. The subject is being acted on. Okay, and then you have the middle voice, which indicates both that the subject initiates the action and also participates in the results of the action. And then it says this voice is unique to Greek construction. And then I have to bring up the next page. For example, Jeff hit himself with the ball. Yeah, I'm going to bring this page up so that you can see this too. And then the other verse was John 15:26 that they used. That is the Spirit of truth who proceeds from the Father. He will bear witness of me.
We still don't see the next page.
Yeah, sorry, I hadn't. Hang on. So, rid of that. Okay. So do you see it? Let's see.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Fabulous. Okay, so the examples are Jeff hit himself with the ball, and that is the Spirit of truth who proceeds from the Father. He will bear witness of me, which I'm not quite sure I understand. But one note of interest when looking up a verb in a Greek study tool, that the middle and passive voices will have identical forms. But the context will show you if the subject is receiving the action, which is passive, or if the subject initiated the action and participated in it, which is the middle. And then there's some verbs are deponent verbs. That means that their form in a Greek study tool may be listed as passive or middle voice, but their function or action is active. And then it says, usually your Greek study helps you list these as deponent verbs. I remember that from the class, but I don't remember doing very much with it. Okay. So then, any questions about that so far? Okay.
That's okay.
So then we have the mood. Okay, so the mood is we have 1, 2, 3. How many moods have we got? 4. So we have indicative, we have imperative, we have subjunctive, we have an optative. So those are the moods. So then the mood shows how the action is related to reality from the speaker's point of view. So in indicative, you have the declarative mood or mood of certainty. This is a statement of fact which assumes reality from the speaker's point of view. It simply states a thing as being a fact. For example, John 15:6, he is thrown away as a branch and dries up, and they gather them and cast them into the fire, and they are burned. Or, for an example, Bible study has changed Jeff's life. So that's the indicative mood. Then we have the imperative mood, so which is a particularly important mood actually in the Bible. I get the impression from this here. It's usually a command or entreaty. It is the mood of volition or will. The imperative mood in the Greek makes a demand on the will of the reader to obey the command. It is used to indicate prohibition and authority. For example, Jeff, study your homework and abide in me, just one of the ones I wanted to look up from John 15:4, and ask whatever you wish from John 15:7, and abide in my love from John 15:9, and remember the word that I said to you from John 15:20. So, and another important thing from this, I thought, was it says here, one aspect which will help your study of God's word is the understanding of the combination of present tense and the imperative mood that is stating a negative command. In other words, a prohibition. So it's the present imperative prohibition demands a cessation of some act already in progress. And so for the example is, Jesus said to her, stop clinging to me, from John 20, verse 17. In other words, Mary was clinging to Jesus, and Jesus was telling her to stop clinging and go on refusing to cling to him. Okay? Is that pretty clear? So that obviously, well, I think there are many imperatives in the Bible. That's how the Lord really speaks to us. And the imperative could be a command or an entreaty. And it makes a demand on the will of the reader to obey the command. So, and it says, so I think that, though a lot of times we don't want to hear it, which I don't know, but it's either a prohibition or authority, or so then our flesh doesn't want to hear that. So, and then the last one is the subjunctive. No, actually, there's still the subjunctive and the optative. And of course, if you studied Spanish, you know something about the subjunctive. I think it's the mood of probability. This implies some doubt regarding the reality of the action from the speaker's point of view, and expresses uncertainty or action which may or should happen. And it's the mood used for conditional clauses or strong suggestions or polite commands. So, for example, Jeff may have done his homework. But Jeff, if you do not do your homework, you cannot participate in the class discussion. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself unless it abides in the vine, so neither can you unless you abide in me. So it's another one I probably actually need to look up. And then this is another important point here. Something else which may help you study God's word is an understanding of the combination of the aorist tense and the subjunctive mood that is stating a negative command, which is a prohibition. So, for example, it's the aorist subjunctive prohibition is a warning or an exhortation against doing a thing not yet begun. For example, and I'll show you this. So the example of that, which is the aorist, its aorist subjunctive prohibition is a warning or exhortation against doing a thing that is not yet begun. So the example is, Peter said to him, never shall you wash my feet, from John 13:8. In other words, Peter was telling Jesus that he was not to wash his feet, and Jesus was not even to start washing his feet. And then there's the optative mood. which presents no definite anticipation. It's mood of possibility. And for example, I wish my neighbor Jeff would take the precept Bible studies. So then you have a chart that's got all these. So you have in tenses, you have present imperfect, you have the perfect, you have the pluperfect and the aorist, and the future. And then we have another chart. Let's see which shows us the mood and the voice. Oh, okay. So then you have mood, which is, you have four different moods: indicative, imperative, subjunctive, and optative. And voice, which is either active, passive, or middle. And then this is the interesting one down here: tense, mood, and voice. Okay, so for prohibitions, this is where the speaker states a negative command, which says so for prohibition, in the present imperative, used with a negative, and this prohibition demands the cessation of some act already in progress. And then you have John 20, verse 17, which says, "Do not hold me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. Okay. But go to my brothers and tell them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, and to my God and your God." So that's the same, "do not cling to me," is talking to Mary. And it demands a cessation of some act already in progress. And then there's the aorist subjunctive, which is a warning or exhortation against doing a thing, like in John 13, verse 8. And let's see, I guess I'll bring up Bible Hub and look at that. Does that sound like a good idea to you, or do you want me to? So hopefully that, I know it was a lot, but it's a little review. Let's see. So John 13, verse 8 says, "Peter said to him, 'You will never wash my feet.' Jesus answered, 'Unless I wash you, you have no part with me.'" Okay. And the Amplified, it says, "We can have nothing to do with each other." Okay. So that's verse 13, verse 8. So really what I wanted to do, I guess I could show you the two other things on the aorist. Do you want me to do that? More explaining the aorist? Sure. And then next time or something like that, we could look up some example verses. Does that sound like a good?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, can you guys see that now? It says grammatical notations. So anyway, I'll read it to you. Is that okay?
Yeah, okay.
Next time we'll talk more about it. So it says the aorist imperative. Well, actually, I should start with aorist tense. Aorist tense is used for simple, undefined action. In the indicative mood, the aorist tense can indicate punctiliar action that happens at a specific point in time in the past. It must be distinguished from the imperfect, which denotes continuous action in the past. With few exceptions, whenever the aorist tense is used in any mood, the verb does not, other than the indicative, the verb does not have any temporal significance. in other words, I will post all this stuff up, okay? So you can reread it. In other words, it refers only to the reality of an event or action, not to the time when it took place.